Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 185 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to work on substations and inserters. Enjoy! And it's pretty straightforward, so we shouldn't have to do anything too crazy. It'll probably be fairly similar to this, but it'll have a higher tier. First, let's do the substations with just one machine. And the earlier substation doesn't require any other poles. So then we'll do big electric pole 2. One machine, which requires pole 1. And then we'll do the medium pole. One machine, which requires tier 1, which requires basically the tier 0. So it's more or less 1 to 1 to 1 for all this, except the resource requirement is fairly high. So speed modules don't make much sense here. So we'll use the efficiency ones instead, since we can't use productivity. And let's see here. What kind of output? Well, as far as the substations are concerned, we probably want to power this down a little bit, since we will not be able to supply that amount of plate, so let's do 0.7. Like, we couldn't really even support that amount of electronic boards either, but in the short term, we could. Just want to make these numbers a little more sensible before we go into coil chopping and all of that. But we need to make a ton of rods, and that will actually take up a huge number of machines, which also need their coil choppers. But it's not really a clean ratio for that. We need the steel chopper. Pretty reasonable number of machines. And probably lots of copper cable. Actually, because of that number, we may want to do direct insertion for some of this stuff. Yeah, because we could never put that amount on a belt here. But we could do it with a couple of machines now. Could we supply 6 machines around one assembling machine? Especially considering that it needs to direct insert into something else. So we would be inserting upwards like this. But could we get 6 machines in here? Well, and also, how many inserters would we need to get an idea for how many slots? Well, actually not that many. 1 stack inserter per machine would work. So in fact, this silly looking thing would indeed get the correct amount of cable in there. Of course, we'd also have to get all this other stuff, but that's basically 2 belts worth. So it could be done, where the 2 belts would come in here, then there'd be an inserter in the middle to flip it to the other side, and then that other machine would need its other stuff. We might as well do the coil chopper right there as well, just to avoid belt problems. And actually, looking at that amount of steel, it's probably not practical, considering the number of machines that have to go into it. But we certainly could flank it by 2 electronics assemblers. Okay, so this machine would need its own coil chopper. And we know we could insert that many. And the tinned wire as well. And it gets its steel from elsewhere. This one would need its coil choppers, but it's much slower, so it wouldn't take much. And then off to the side, a whole 2 belts worth of iron rods, and also steel. Well, is this going on the upside or the downside? Probably on the down. So let's make it the correct direction, because it won't let us flip it later if we want to. So this funny monstrosity will receive its coils from somewhere. It's actually quite a bit of coil to make all of this. We might as well make the steel locally here, since we need kind of such a huge amount of it, and it's also belt limited. It probably makes sense to make it right here next to this setup, where belt goes in, and it actually looks like this lines up pretty well. Then we can just kind of slice this in here. We are going to have a bit of a belt throughput issue here though, because we need 2 inserters for each side. So instead, I don't typically like to do this, but because we are space limited, why not? Where it's pick up and drop. Let's just do a corner inserter, which is twice as fast. And that'll get the resources in there. So we also need to leave some space in here for the inserter to move items across, because we need to put one right there. Okay, and then on the other end will actually come the other resources, the concrete and circuit boards, using the corner inserter as well. And actually we probably want storage chests in here, picking up the tier 1s if any of them ever find their way into the network. See, we do need to hook up logic to these. Let's just aim for a stack. And we'll need a storage chest next to this one, just to function kind of as a buffer to make sure all the resources, any extras, find their way back into the provider chest. I think it's most things for the substations. This should be expandable, so if we get new substation types, we can just kind of put it down here and bring resources in. So we'll need to remember to leave space here for extra belts, so more than just like 2 spaces. I'm starting to run out of power poles, so this is convenient timing, as it always is when you're automating things. And this can be expanded downwards like before, but we'll need to make sure we leave extra space on the side for belts and potentially a huge array of machines like this, but probably not, because all of this goes into the first tier, and the second tier is actually quite compact. Finally, the medium electric poles. And we need to make sure we take care of these steel plates. The numbers are smaller, but nonetheless, we need to do it. The poles, the numbers are bigger, but that's the setup we need. Fortunately, it's just different enough to where I don't think we could really copy this. Certain elements are similar, such as needing 12 of these. So I guess we can copy that much. And we would need 2 of these. And 2 steel machines. Let's just place them here. And that can come straight down. This also needs some of the steel, which actually can be yellow. We could probably pick this up now and kind of put it back in here. Okay. I think that's pretty good. We got 3 individual setups here. And we'll want to make sure that each one has a nice, healthy gap to make sure that they all have room to expand to the next tier. So we definitely want to be trying to be ready for it. Okay, now that we got that cleaned up, we can go back. And since I don't want to drive the crawler back, let's use the jetpack. Because it is quite fun. Alright, here we are. Oh yeah, now that we got back to the network, the robots are like, oh no, oh no! Your inventory isn't perfect! We can help. Okay, let's get all these things. I don't know. There's a specific order we should do. Probably the lowest tier items first. Let's see. We probably don't need room on the right for expansion. So let's leave it on the left. So we put that in there, and the bots, of course, they want to help. And there they go. But we need to help them. By putting in all the resources that they're going to need here. I have a lot of junk in my inventory because I picked up a whole bunch of stuff from the recycling machine. So the bots are like, we know where to put that stuff. So they're swarming. Well, now we need to put the belts down, and this will be significantly easier now that they will update us with any used items. Okay, we've got some resources to test this here. Let's see, let's make this a little more symmetrical by putting that there. We haven't put the machines in there, but also we need to have the wires to control this. How in the world does the storage chest get in there? Ah, I see, because it doesn't have a filter. So, pull is less than 50. Turn on, and this one, the filter, is a pull. And there we go. This one is the medium pull. Medium pull less than 50. And tier 2. Less than 50. And these machines weren't placed because I didn't put them in the box, so... There we go, running nice and smoothly. It's actually pretty amazing how fast that went. It almost seems too fast, but this is as fast as the single machines will go with no speed modules, so it seems like we should try to support that. Looking good there. So let's do big poles next. And we definitely want to leave some space here now. As far as how many, I don't know. Let's leave 6 slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That seems like that would be appropriate for anything else that would have to go through there. There's always bots. If this doesn't work out. We need to expand the network. Whoops. Put that in the wrong spot. Luckily, they're helping us now because they have access to the power poles and the belts, so we have to give them less and less every time. Let's see, that is perhaps not the good spot because it doesn't have power. Although it should have power there. I guess it just needs an extra power pull in here. There we go. All the inserters. And the lights. We need to expand this bus. It'd be nice to have some more landfill, but luckily I know where we can get some. And instead of having to drive back, which is annoying, let's fly. We got lots of landfill in there. Might as well grab some concrete too. We do have it up there, but it would be easier on the bots if we just grab some now. So easy. Also, much less likely to get run over by a train. It's nice that the bots cleared out the fish, so I don't have to worry about those anymore. Okay, let's hook everything up here and see how it works. It's doing the best it can. It seems to be limited on these iron rods, but we've got 3 stack inserters already, so there's not much room to put anything else, but you see how quickly it filled up, so I don't think it really matters too much. And finally, the new thing, the substations. And we'll probably want to leave our 3, 4, 5, 6 spots just to play it safe again. And have lots of places for bots to park. Okay, that should be most things for here, so let's get it all hooked up. Oh, looks like I hooked up iron here instead of steel. Luckily, the bots don't mind clearing out our inventory. So we can just come down here, pick everything up, and let the bots clean it up. The chain of bots. Let's see. Seems like it still has some throughput issues, but what else can we do besides that? Nonetheless, it's filling up quickly. The very long line of bots waiting to charge up. But if they're just there to charge, though, maybe having a nice charge pad there will help. Of course, it doesn't help the bots that are already waiting, but they'll get there eventually. So let's set up some new requests for our new items. Let's do 1 stack of mediums, 1 stack of bigs, and 1 stack of the substations. And let's put those substations on our toolbar. So there we go. It's a nice device that can be implemented into future builds. Or it's a little expensive to build, but you don't have to worry about all these individual poles, which can help. Kind of depends on exactly what kind of build you're doing, on whether or not these make much of a difference or not. But they certainly help. So with these setups, we couldn't really jam one of these in here. But I'm sure if you had a really large setup, you could make it work. But here it would have helped, so we'll have to play it by ear and see how that changes future setups. But we're looking good. Now it's time to work on the next items. And those bots have been kind of loud, so I quieted them down a little bit. So hopefully now you can stand them a little better, because with the standard noises, they were kind of loud. So now they're just kind of in the background. And it's nice to see them do bot things. So we have our power poles. Probably the next step here is inserters, which we do use a bunch of. And let's double check. I guess we have an inserter here, just to make sure there's nothing available that we might be able to use. The express inserters require cobalt. And we're not that far away, but for now it doesn't look like we need to bother with that. And will our original setup actually work for us? Actually, it very well might. It's a very linear process where you go from a pole to a burner inserter, yellow, red, and then stack. And then it feeds off to the side for all of the filter versions. So, assuming the speeds of things hasn't changed too much, hopefully we should be able to basically reuse that. So I want to minimize the amount of things that are getting rebuilt here. Well, let's do the fast stack inserter, making it based on one machine, which comes from the regular stack inserter, which comes from the fast inserter, the yellow, the burner, and finally the iron rod. It's basically all a 1-to-1 ratio here. So mainly the question is numbers. And it looks like this is all stuff that can be done on red belts. We might have to double check to make sure nothing weird is going on, but seems like it should work fairly well. And then we're going to need our plate chopper. And we want productivities in here. And that just barely works. So the rest of these would basically be efficiencies. Well, that's kind of nice to see. Well, let's pull it out then. Let's see what we can do with it. Line it up with other machines. 1, 2, and let's give it a couple more spaces. 4, 5, should be 6. And we'll have to change a little bit about this, but the bots will help us. And of course, a lot of stuff has to get converted here. Which is always a little annoying, but looks like we need a lot less poles than we used to. Although we do need to kind of modify this a little bit, so we'll probably end up having to move it a bit here, because we always have to modify everything. Let's bring up the pin. So we need to chop the plates. We want productivity modules. See, these inserters are set to stack inserters, but oh, why does that move back over there? But it's yellow in, red out. Let's just put that over there, so less flashing. Looks like we still need something there, though. So that can go there, and none of that's required. I believe this is circuits swinging around here, basic electronic boards. Yeah, because they're kind of needed by a few of these machines. It's kind of a weird design how it circles around on both sides. But that is what it does. See, it might be easier for complicated setups like this to just do a rate calculator than figure out how much is needed for something. So that needs 16 electronic boards. Well, we can just put the inserters down and we get 18.5, so we know we need 2 of those for that. So that might be a faster way than constantly looking at that. I guess you could put stack inserters down everywhere, but I don't know. I always like putting the correct inserter for the job rather than trying to just put stack inserters everywhere. And for this one here, we need 4 per second, which I believe is just a fast inserter. And those are long-handed right there. And that needs 20. So that's an awful lot of them. We don't need to worry about keeping these completely filled all of the time, because we're not necessarily using every available inserter all of the time. Create a chest here to remind myself what goes there. Steel gears, bronze plates. Of course, I think the bots are going to come by and fix our inventory, but whatever. They'll keep fixing it as required. So this requires 4 of each, which is within what a stack inserter can do, but it's going to have to keep cycling between the 2 different resources. So these red ones might work a little better and put 2 of them in there so they can do each resource type. See, we got something similar going on here, except the numbers are much larger. Wow. Okay, well, luckily we got lots of spaces here. We probably just want to have a ton of these here on each side, just to make sure everything gets grid, because that's a lot of items of 2 different types. So that's going to require a great deal of inserters. And we also need them back here. It's kind of nice, at least the rate calculator window remembers where it goes. So that's for the circuits, and then we need probably, kind of like before, we need 2 of these for all of these items. I don't know if there's really a cleaner way of doing this. I mean, it's a zigzag one way or the other, no matter how you look at it. I suppose that's a little better than what it did. It's funny, a lot of these inserters kind of require basically the same resources. It's just the ones here which require the electric motor and the cylinders. So that's probably a much smaller amount here. Yeah, just as it is now, I guess, with the red inserter on each side. And yellow is fine there. Nonetheless, I'm going to put a chest in here to remind me what goes in there. And that's actually pretty much it. See, we had that chest there to move items around. That's not really necessary anymore, because we're going to have the whole thing on the bot network here. As far as lights, that seems fine. And what's the actual production rate of all of this? It's going to be 4 items, which is a red inserter. And we do kind of need to convert all of this stuff into our pseudo buffer chests. So there definitely needs to be passive providers all along here, because that is the supply point for all those items. But at the same time, we need to be able to dump them there if they get picked up. Well, that's a little annoying, but we'll just use a corner inserter to do that. And actually, probably the same thing here. Okay. Well, that's a lot of things to set. And let's see, let's drop up there to make it a little clearer. I can kind of put that one next to its chest so it looks a little more obvious. Pick up there. Drop to the side. Face it up. Does that look good? Seems to. And that goes over there. I think that's good. A lot of these don't have any limits on them. I think I was just only putting limits on certain ones, but they should all have a certain condition on here rather than just having the squares limited. So we have 50, 500. Well, that worked before, I suppose. I mean, we're not going to use that many of them anymore, though. Let's see, that one's 200. Let's do the same. Guess we just didn't pick up that many of these, so we didn't have them on there, but certainly when you do need a bunch of them, well, you need a bunch of them. Okay. Let's see if this works. And here come the friendly bots to help. I normally put a 1 square gap between the machine there, so we'll do this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we probably need to expand the logistics zone. Nope, they just taken a while to get here now. We probably want lots of places for them to park again, because this is a place that they're going to be going often. And I'll just put them right here because it's easy. If we need to move the roboports, then so be it. We'll put some charging ports in there. And, oh yeah, did we check that one to see if it could use the productivity? Because I'm pretty sure it can, but it's kind of designed for 1, so I don't really want to bother. We'll use 2 productivities in there then. Make it fit in there without too much work. Although, could probably be fit in there fairly easily with, I don't know, an angle inserter or whatever, but close enough. It works. And then we want efficiencies everywhere else. Okay, I think we got everything set up here. It looks like this inserter right here is running at full blast. It probably shouldn't be. There we go. And it is true that having bronze and steel gear wheels on the same belt is a little inefficient, considering we need 24 gear wheels and 16 plates. But I think it'll be okay, because we're not going to be making all of these inserters at the same time all of the time. And rebuilding this to have individual belts for those items would kind of make this a lot messier. So I think we're good just kind of leaving it like it is. This wasn't really built with the idea of having filter inserters and regular inserters be built at the same time. So that's kind of alright that it's a little unbalanced. And we don't need inserters that often or that fast, so this should be okay. Otherwise, it seems like it's fairly uneventful. It's just going through the different inserter types. It's finishing with the stack inserters at the end, and then it'll start backing up going to the basic versions. But we can put some logistics requests in here. We're probably not using very many, if any, burner inserters. So we probably just want to say 0 for that. And if we have a situation where we might want to use them for something, we'll just have to temporarily pause the logistics. And for the rest of these, having 50 of each type ought to work fine. And I try to have no more than 3 types of any given item, or tiers, in my inventory, just to make it as simplistic as possible. So when we get access to, say, the blue inserters, I'll probably get rid of the red ones just to not have too many types of things in our inventory. The same kind of applies with belts. So like when we get blue belts, I'll probably cut out the yellow ones just so there's that much less that we have to deal with. And I noticed that we don't have the small iron pole as part of our logistics. We probably should. Let's make sure it has a chest. And it does. And it's set up. So we will occasionally be picking these poles up. Although, it actually probably got placed by the bots because we copied the blueprint, which had those original poles, and since this is a storage chest, bots can draw from it. So that's probably where those poles came from. But the rest of the base still is using a lot of these poles, so when we're running around doing stuff, we probably want to have a rule in here to make sure they're not part of our inventory, because we really don't want them. You see we got some flashing repairs here. And we have a destroyed bot. This is because of the robot attrition mod, where after some amount of time, robots just kind of crash and break. And they go bye-bye. I think another one crashed up here. Yeah. And I kind of like that as a nerf against bots, so you don't just build one bot and then for the rest of ever, the thing is working for you. That they do wear out over time, and I think that's a pretty good nerf against them. That you know, you still can make as many bots as you want, but it costs you resources because the bots crash, and also they cause basically a surface level amount of damage. So you see it did like 15 damage most of the time for this, so very little overall damage, but they crash, which loses the bot, and also it forces you to send construction bots, if they had access to these repair tools, to actually fix stuff. And I think that's a pretty good nerf to bots, to make it so there's pros and cons to them, just like there's pros and cons to anything else in the game. Because otherwise, bots are a little powerful on their own. And looks like all the inserters finished, which is good to see. We can try to clear up our inventory a little bit of some of this extra stuff. Seems pretty good. We're making progress. I think the car had a bunch of stuff in it too. Yeah. A lot of inserters, which we can just add into the system. They do seem quieter. I'll see if how loud they sound later, and I can make them even quieter if they're still a little bit too loud. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we're going to work on adding assembly machines to our new bus. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.